Hey, yeah, are you playing Among Us?
Yeah.
Nice. Do you mind if I give you a little advice?
Sure.
Cool. If you focus on completing the tasks faster, you're gonna win a lot more. You're honestly pretty slow. I've been watching you a little bit while I'm reading.
Thanks. I'm more of a casual player, though. I just play to have fun.
Well, it would probably be a little bit more fun if you were actually good at the game.
Well, I'm the one playing the game, so do you mind if I just play how I want to?
Sure, but I don't understand why you would play like that. Honestly, you should stop being, snarky and just accept some helpful advice.
I never asked for your advice. Why don't you just leave me alone and read your book?
Really? I'm just trying to help you win more. What's your problem? I don't understand people like you.
So no, that specific scenario has never happened to me. Yes, it's pretty ridiculous, but there have been instances where I've been playing games with friends and one person takes it way too seriously, or more seriously than everyone else, to the point where it's not fun for the other people because they're like getting angry at people who are just playing a game to have fun because they want people to play a certain way. The scenario is over the top, but a lot of controlling behavior tends to be over the top too. A lot of things that controlling people care about don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So I thought maybe something as silly as one person dictating how another should play Among Us or a video game would kind of represent the silliness of controlling personalities and how it's so unnecessary. When I interact with people who seem to have a really controlling personality, I don't tend to get offended. I consider it something that they're working on, not something that I'm doing wrong. I don't take it personally. But I have witnessed when two controlling personalities butt heads. In that instance, it's interesting. Either one personality totally submits to the other, or they can explode and have these really intense, angry, screaming matches a lot of times. So before I get any deeper into trying to figure out from my perspective what a controlling personality is, I'm gonna go through some of the behaviors that controlling people tend to exhibit. They micromanage others to make them fit their often unrealistic expectations. They don't believe in imperfection and don't think anyone else should either. They believe that they are helping people with their constructive criticism. And this is what I see a lot when people say, can I give you some advice? Or can I just give you some constructive criticism? And it seems nice. It's like, yeah, sure, I'd love to get some of your advice. But then when they give the advice and you don't take it, they feel personally attacked or they get angry. And that's what I was trying to represent in this scenario when the one character who was playing Among Us was like, yeah, I play differently. Thanks for the advice, though. The other character got really upset and like, why aren't you taking my advice? I don't understand. That's when I think it can be problematic and controlling personalities can become toxic. It's not that you're giving advice and you are offering constructive criticism to people. It's that you get angry at the people when they don't take it, when it's ultimately their own decision whether or not they take your advice. They get angry when they see someone who is incompetent. So I read online that people with controlling personalities tend to get angry while driving. So if you see someone driving and you consider them incompetent for whatever reason, you get really angry at them. Like, why did they swerve over into my lane? This is like they're a terrible driver. Instead of just realizing that they might be ignorant of the laws or they might be having a bad day and just kind of letting it roll off your shoulder, you get really upset and kind of triggered that people would be so incompetent, getting upset, angry at someone else's flaws. If you got angry about every person's flaw, then you'd have a bad life. They act superior to others and are determined to show everyone that they are the most practical, logical, and intelligent person in the crowd. It can be really annoying. I'm sure many of you have experienced being in a group of friends and have one person constantly trying to prove how smart they are or how capable and talented they are. It's just not fun. Like, what? Yeah, great. You're super cool. Like, can we just chill and hang out now? To me, it's a lot more fun to hang out with people who are comfortable with their flaws and the fact that they don't know everything. And I would think most people aren't happy to be around somebody who is constantly trying to prove how smart they are. Refusal to admit when they themselves are wrong. So this can get a lot of people into trouble as well. If you never can admit when you're wrong, your relationships are gonna really suffer because admitting you're wrong is like a really big step to saying you're sorry and to gaining trust from the people around you. Always trying to win the argument or have the last word. With controlling personalities, there seems to be a strong value placed on winning in every aspect of what you're doing, whether it's economic or just like a small argument about whether or not you should get lunch from one pizzeria or the other. So even like small inconsequential things, controlling people can feel heavily invested and get really angry over. So it seems like I'm just going over and over about how bad controlling behavior is. I guess it's good when you're in a highly competitive place, when you're trying to win a sports match, or when you're trying to do the best work that you can, some maker's fair or competition. Maybe having that type of controlling behavior is in some cases good to get the most out of your workers if you're a manager, although I wouldn't want to work under someone who's controlling. I don't know, I'm sure there's like times when that personality is beneficial, but speaking from interpersonal relationships, it's almost always bad. When you're freaking out over you wanted to go to a pizza place and and all the other people of the group wanted to go to another pizza place, and you're trying to show how much better it is with logic and fact, it's just not a good thing for interpersonal. It's not fun usually for people, unless maybe you have two controlling personalities who love to debate and kind of win arguments, because that can happen too. Some people love that type of interaction where they're arguing and trying to better themselves constantly. But most people, I would say, find that a little overwhelming and not fun emotionally. They believe others will perceive them as incompetent or foolish because of one simple error. If they're not factually correct about something, they'll get extremely upset and try to defend themselves, when ultimately people normally just don't care that much if you get something wrong. For the controlling people, it'll feel like a huge misstep if you get something wrong, which it isn't. Everybody gets things wrong. Just say that you're wrong and it's totally fine. They have an answer for everything, and they come across as sanctimonious or hypocritical to those who know them well. If you're never going to admit that you're wrong on anything, even though other people know that you're wrong, then it's really hard for people to trust that when you're right, that you're actually right. So I, as someone who's untrained as a psychologist, as a sociologist, I'm just your run-of-the-mill dude with a camera in front of them. I came up with some ideas on how to help controlling behaviors or personalities. Value the feelings of the people around you. I think controlling people in many cases are very concerned with themselves and in their own heads. It's hard for them to think about what others are feeling or thinking, and that can be a real detriment to your relationships. Try to be more interested, genuinely interested in what other people feel and what they're thinking. Be better at reading body language to see if people appreciate your constructive criticism. If they didn't ask for it, proceed with the assumption that they don't want your advice. Be more careful if you're a controlling person about giving advice. Know that your tendency is to try to make people conform to your beliefs or to your way of doing things. Know that about yourself, and then be careful. If they don't look at you, if they seem closed off, if they're not speaking very much back to you, it probably means they're not really interested in talking to you and they don't appreciate your advice. And then stop and don't push it. And then that's fine. Then they'll, respect you for that. But if you keep on pushing and pushing, even if they don't verbalize it, you should be able to read their body language and tell that they don't want that type of advice or constructive criticism. Don't push your fears onto others, and don't get angry when people don't agree with you. So I guess the biggest takeaway from this video is to try not to get angry if you're a controlling person when somebody doesn't behave the way that you want them to. Anger is a very interesting emotion. It's hard for me to think when anger is helpful in interpersonal relationships. It really seems like it's mostly a bad thing to feel. So if you are feeling angry when someone isn't acting the way you want them to, know that anger is probably going to harm the relationship. So try to take a deep breath, try to calm down before you interact with that person or before you say something that you might regret later. And don't push your fears onto others. I mean, we all have fears that maybe aren't based in fact or science. So we should try to be aware of that and not push our fears onto other people too much. Like, it's fine to say, hey, I'm really scared when you put your hand out the window because I think it's gonna get torn off when the next big truck comes. But if they're like, I'm not afraid of that, it's fine. You can't say, well, you have to bring your hand in because I'm afraid and you have to abide by my fears. It's that's like a pretty bad example, but if people want to do things that's not affecting you or anybody else, just let them do their thing and try to have your own fears deal more with your life than other people's lives. Accept that it is okay to be wrong, and people feel more comfortable around those who admit to messing up. It's fine to be wrong. It's totally okay to mess up and to be a huge, silly person. I am constantly messing up. I have like a bad memory. It's hard for me to remember simple facts, to remember people's names, and many people have issues like that. And you know, you just laugh it off. Some ways it's kind of nice for people to see that you're vulnerable, that you're comfortable messing up. If you're bullied through school growing up, which a lot of controlling people are, I'm sure, it can be really hard to accept that people will still love you or still want to hang out with you if you admit you're wrong, or if you admit that you're not as capable as you hope to be. But that fear, I think, is irrational, especially for adults. Maybe when you're kids, they're gonna, make fun of you and not want to hang out with you, possibly because you have imperfections. But as adults, I think it's much more appreciated when people have imperfections than when they posture to be perfect all the time. Be realistic about your expectations of others. Like when you drive, you have to expect that there are going to be people who act badly on the road or who are ignorant of laws. If you expect that people are imperfect and they're going to mess up, maybe it'll be easier to deal with the moment when they do mess up. So those are just some of my thoughts on controlling personalities. I think it's really important to think about, and especially something that men should think about, because I believe that there are some similarities with the idea of a macho man or toxic masculinity and being a controlling person. Toxic masculinity, one of the aspects is a heavy emphasis on hierarchy and where you are in the pecking order. And controlling people tend to think about that a lot as well, and how they can win in every type of situation. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you guys are staying safe and having a great day.